Today we're talking to Christina Gibson, a real estate investor and a homeowner who was looking at converting some garages into ADUs to turn into a rental, maybe a corporate rental. And it's a very interesting project because even though she started off rolling up her sleeves doing it herself, she ended up finding the sponsor of this video, Realm, who helped her get that project done on budget and on time in the best way possible. Christina, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. When did you start thinking about an ADU?
The idea came up when I got laid off from my job.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, I got laid off and I was trying to find myself and figure out where I can make some money. And I looked into our portfolio and I was like, you know what? We should just expand what we have. We'd always thought about buying more property, but in LA, as you know, it's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And we had opportunity within our own portfolio to expand. And that was the first idea that came to mind is let's grow it.
It's it. Sometimes it's a silver lining, right? You figure out a good time to change gears. Okay, so that means you already had a couple properties. You're a homeowner and had some other stuff in your portfolio too. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Sure. We have 6 units in Los Angeles and a single family home just a few miles of where we are now. It's not a huge portfolio, but enough to keep me busy.
Well, I bet. Okay, so just to say that back, it's a single family home where you were living, and then a 6 unit property, or they were all closer together.
We have the single family home that we live in.
Hmm.
Then we have a single family home that we rent out. That's a few miles away from our home. And then there's 6 units in Los Angeles.
Cool. And the six units are one property, or they're
Yes.
scattered. Cool.
It's one property.
Yeah. And so when you're looking at your portfolio like that, even before thinking about an ADU, what are some of the things you're weighing? Because you could develop some of your existing properties, you could buy a new property. How do you think about that?
Well, I started to think about the space that we had on the properties. Initially, when I had lost my job, I'm like, okay, well, we can convert the garage in the apartments, and then we can also convert the garage in the single family home. Then I started running numbers in my head. I'm like, okay, that can supplement my income with just those 2 units being brand new. And we just went from there.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah. So you've got your kind of spreadsheet. You're figuring out your returns. What kind of costs were you estimating for the conversions at that time?
I was thinking it was going to be a lot less. And initially I thought I could do it myself.
Hmm.
We we've done quite a few projects, so I felt savvy enough to handle it on my own. And then I started to think about all of the layers that are involved in something like this when it comes to pulling permits and having inspectors come out. And then started to take a few steps back, and I think I took a little bit more than I could chew. um, and that's when I started to think like, okay, I think I need a professional to help, especially to expedite this. Yes, it will be cheaper for me to do it on my own. And that's initially what I was strictly thinking about cost is how can I
Hmm.
save as much cost as possible? So I wanted to do it myself because I had all the contacts. I have a plumber, I have a roofer,
Hmm.
I have everyone, but how long is it going to take me? And I've never done a construction project of this type before, so I
Hmm.
haven't dealt with the city and permitting, and I
Hmm.
needed to get it off the ground running as soon as possible.
Hmm.
So getting a professional involved is what ultimately had me choose this route.
Yeah, it's a great example because a lot of the time, you're like, well, I've got the time, right? Because I'm between gigs,
Hmm.
and I can turn my time into money, and there's no opportunity cost there. But then when you start thinking about the delays, it's like if I make a mistake and it delays the project 2 months, that's 2 months rent roll that I'm missing
Exactly.
out on. So like, what's my math here? Okay, but give me a literal like it could be a ballpark, but when you first started daydreaming like conversion instead of new property, what kind of cash were you putting next to the garage conversion? How
Oh,
much
I
did you
was
think it would
thinking
cost?
I can do this for $70,000. In my
Yeah.
head, I'm like, oh, piece of cake, like 70,000. I can figure out how much each person's going to charge me.
Hmm.
And then when the bids started coming in, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can only do one right now.
Hmm.
Not the two.
Hmm.
So in working with Realm, they helped me look at the costs that were associated to each project. And then I started to think where I can get more cash flow on the more desirable area in the
Yeah.
unit. Um, so one was going to be less expensive, lower cash flow because of the
Yeah.
area. You know, the one that we ultimately ended up choosing was more expensive. But I also chose higher end finishings, and you know, it was a more luxurious type of
Hmm.
unit, and ultimately it's paying me back.
Hmm.
Now we have people in there, so it was a good move for us.
Okay, so let's break that down into the steps. So you're thinking like, garage conversion, 70K. Like I know all my subs, I know what they're going to charge me. But then you actually go to get some bids. Did you get bids from the subs directly, and that's when you
Yes.
started reality checking? So like, walk me through that. Who did you talk
Yes.
to? Who was the big piece of it?
So I'm a part of a few apartment owner associations, and they host a lot of free educational events. And I believe it was AOA. They were holding an event for property managers and small mom and pop business owners. And they have different topics that they discuss every month. So I go to my monthly class to see what they're talking about. And this is all the while where I have the ADU running in the back of my head that this is what I want to do. But I had no intention of learning about the ADU specifically when I went to this particular class. And I see there's a booth outside of this class and it's Realm. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know any idea what Realm is. And there were really nice women, talking and engaging with the guests as they were walking in. And I went to my class. It was an attorney talking about landlord tenant laws. And then the second portion was a gentleman talking about ADUs. And then Realm was there in connection with them. And it was like, I felt like the stars had just aligned. Like, okay, this is a sign. I need to start talking to someone because I'm already hitting roadblocks. I had called a few contractors on my own and nobody was getting back to me. Everybody's really busy in LA. So that was another piece. Once I figured out that I needed help, I'm calling all of these ADU contractors, and I even had my plans at that point now, and no one's calling me back.
Hmm.
So after the meeting, I go outside and I talk to the reps, and they were explaining to me how Realm works, and it was really interesting to know that they're going to give me contractors that I can interview myself.
Hmm.
I can meet them, and then I ultimately make the decision. So it was not salesy at all. I liked that approach, that they weren't just trying to force me to choose their preferred vendor. It's ultimately my decision. And I liked that idea. So I went with them and I interviewed three contractors.
See, that's a perfect use case, right? Because you got the book. You think I'm gonna sub this out myself. I can owner build. I'm a smart person. I could do this.
Hmm.
And then actually, what you also know, being a smart person, it's gonna take me time to get these bids and even get people to pick up the phone and come out and look at the project. On the other hand, this company, Realm, is willing to do all that legwork, get three bids, no commitment for a few $100. And if I
Right.
happen to use one of them, I get that money back. So it was free to me. And if I don't want to use them, I walk away. I could still sub it out myself. I could still find my own GC. So that's an easy choice for you. You're like, jackpot.
Right.
When do we start? Okay. Um, all right. And then you already alluded to this, but before you got those bids, you started talking to somebody at Realm who was just like, well, you've got two possible projects. They're going to cost this or that. And how are they going to return on your investment? What was that? Is that like a different call that you did before
Yes.
booking?
So once I signed up for Realm, they assigned me to, I believe it was a project manager. I'm not sure what their titles are. And her name was Charlotte. And she kind of just let me just talk. She said, what is your plan? What do you want to do? Um, we talked all about my ideas and the areas of where these were at. So she pulled up the properties, and then we talked about how much money I was looking to make, how much money I was looking to spend. Um, and she helped me run numbers on potential rental income that I can get for each of the properties. She gave me an outline of what these bids are going to look like and let me know that once these bids come in, we don't just throw you out on your own. We're here to walk you through and hold your hand and look at all these bids together line by line and see if it's a right fit for you. And if it's not, then you can walk away, like you said.
Yeah.
So she did do that. I told her what my idea was for each. And for the house that we did end up choosing, we weren't going to do a long-term rental. The plan for that home was to go the corporate rental route.
Mhm.
And the rates for rent, you can charge 1.5 times more than a long-term rental rate. So she took that into consideration too. She did some market research and then got back to me. And the main thing that she also was able to do that we don't think about, and sometimes we don't have like the right tools or the calculators to think about this, is she broke it down and said, if you go this route, this is how long it's going to take you to pay off to get your money back. If you go this route, this is how long it's going to take to get your money back, based off of how much you're spending for construction costs and your future rents. So they lay out this whole picture that's a very holistic picture of what you're going to expect on either route that you choose.
Very cool. And that's all. That's before you sign up for the contractor bidding, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so for people watching the video, there's going to be a link in the description below where they can book that call and just start talking in front of somebody like Charlotte, and then get some of that early feedback on cost, realistic cost for their neighborhood, potential returns, stuff like that. It's a great call, and it's free. And then, of course, there's a lot of encouragement for you to continue on and use them to find 3 bids. But that's an easy first step. All right, so I'm kind of thinking through this, and you've talked a lot about one of the unique things about talking to you, Christina, is that you're kind of a real estate investor type, right? You're looking at this not as your personal backyard, but just like dollars and cents. What's the best thing for me to do right now? Were you considering other investments compared to this once you saw the cost go up, or were you pretty set on ADU conversion?
Even though I knew it was more expensive, I still felt that it was the right way to go because I'm able to add another door to my portfolio for a lower cost than it would to take me to buy another
Hmm.
property in California. I'd have to go out of state and invest out of state. So I liked the fact that I stayed in my backyard and I had my eyes and ears on it. Um, I'm not opposed to investing out of state at all,
Yeah.
but I really want to be here. And that was the best way to grow and still stay in my city.
Totally. And like at the what time frame are we thinking about here? You said it was 2023 or
2023. Yep.
yeah.
That was
And
when the idea
so,
started.
looking at a brand new property, rates had already gone up, and so
Hmm.
that kind of puts a limit on what you can do in a tight market like LA. Whereas sitting on improving existing properties, you how did could you access capital in a way that you didn't need to touch any of your existing rates?
We've been sitting on our line of credit that we've had for a few years, and it's always been there as
Perfect.
an opportunity zone for us. Like, it's there when we need it, and we were able to jump on the opportunity. So that's where we were able to get the funds to cover the cost.
Yeah, it's a great example. Sometimes I joke on the channel. I say, unless you're sitting on a huge pile of money, it can be hard to make this decision. Having an existing line of credit is kind of like that, where you're familiar with the institution, you already have the rate, you already
Hmm.
it's cash waiting to spend, and as long as you're
Right.
not finding a way to invest it, it's just sitting there untapped. So that makes a ton of sense. All right. So once you actually went through the bidding process with those builders, how would you describe that experience compared to when you were trying to pick up the phone and get bids yourself?
Well, there's incentive for these guys to pick up the phone because they have a relationship with Realm, right? So I get the whole sales aspect of it. They sign up for Realm and there's an incentive there to get leads. So I understand all of that. And I did like the fact that they picked up or they were even calling me, like she's like, I'm going to send people your way. So they were very responsive. They met on time. um, you just get to meet different personalities, and not everyone is. your cup of tea. So there's something for everyone out there. So I got to meet three different styles of contractor, personalities, just everything about their workflow. And, you know, ultimately ended up picking which I feel was the right fit for me. And it wasn't the cheapest bid, so I was a little surprised at that because I was so dollar focused. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get this done for the lowest rate. But then when I started to see their styles and the communication, and I said, even though this one is more expensive, I still feel that it's the right fit.
That happens a lot, I think. Because it is like a long project compared to like come in and redo the kitchen real fast.
Right.
It's like I'm kind of living with this person on one of my properties for like 9 months. Can I ask about the price difference between like the lowest bid and the bid you ended up taking?
Sure. One of them came in, I think at like, one of them was like 113.
Yeah.
Another one was a few like 120. And then another one came in at 130.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that I made that decision when I did, because now 2 years later, they've gone up even more. So when you're planning on doing something, you got to jump on the opportunity at the moment, because prices will always go up no matter what. They're not going down. So if I were to do it again, when you're ready, just jump.
That's good advice.
So it went from 150, it ranged from about 115 to 130. It just in construction costs.
Yeah. Yeah. I often tell people this very similarly. It's like, don't try to time a market, whether it's stocks or your personal portfolio of housing. If we were good at predicting where costs are going to go, we'd just do that for a living.
Right.
And what you can control is, hey, what can I get for my dollars today? What can I do with this line of credit today?
Right.
And don't well, not financial advice, but I don't try to guess about the future. I try to control what I can control in the present. Okay, that's very cool. And so you had this fork in the bids, and but the type of contractor, you want to put a little meat on that bone. Like, what did you like about the person you went with, or what did you not? What were you worried about with the low bid?
Some contractors are a little hungrier to get that next job. So, they're a little pushier, or they're very chatty, or they talk too much. And, there's some that are just very passive. And then you feel like, well, how punctual are you if you just seem very passive? And then ultimately I ended up going with Go ADU with Gil. And he was straight to the point, and that's my personality. It's like, I don't need the fluff. Just give it to me straight, and we'll just go from there. So he was very direct, cut the fluff out, and he vibed with my personality, and we were not jokey, but I have a sense of humor. And we just clicked from the beginning, and I was like, okay, I think he might be the guy. And he first gave me the bid to the LA apartments, and that, because I initially was thinking about starting there. I'm like, I'm going to get bids for both. We're going to start here. And when we ultimately chose not to go with the apartments and do the single family house, I asked him to come back, and he did. And that's what I liked, is that these contractors came to both locations, even though they didn't know, like, okay, she's just renting me all around town. But they showed up, and I appreciate that.
It's so, like, I encourage everybody who watches the channel who's really thinking about the project, start getting bids as early as you can in your thinking process. Like, get a general sense of what you want to build, but start talking to builders. And the more scope you have, the more likely it is that they'll come out and look. But you already had construction drawings and stuff, and
Yes.
it was still hard because they're busy, and you're a one-off as a homeowner. A lot of ADU people are like onesies, maybe twosies. But a company like Realm, they're sending bids, on a regular basis. And so the builder knows, I got to prioritize my regulars. Or the other thing is, if people get an architect, like a professional, to do referrals, a lot of the time that's the same effect where like the builder knows they need to do a good job for that designer or that architect.
Right.
But then you're paying the premium on an architect. It's a bit more expensive. You're getting a different product than when you bring your own drawings and go through a bidding company like Realm. Anyway, cool
I wish I would
stuff.
have, going back, I wish I would
Yeah.
have met Realm a little sooner in my journey because I started with the architect route. And, it's very expensive. And sometimes not all architects work with the contractor the way the contractor needs them to. So some of these contractors have preferred architects that they communicate well with, and the project may go along a little smoother. Luckily, mine was able to communicate with my contractor well. I just don't know if I got the best price. So that's where, it would have been nice to have it all done as a
Hmm.
under one umbrella.
Which is an option if you get along early enough in the process. So
Right.
that's really interesting too. Like I love architects. I used to work in an architecture firm, but I still, ADUs, especially conversions, they're smaller projects, and so the like 10% of your budget to the architect rule of thumb. Sometimes it feels a lot more like than 10%,
Yeah.
for it to be worth it for a good designer or architect. And then on top of that, you're documenting existing conditions is not the most. It's not why people got into architecture school, right? And then like the little surprises that you discover on site. You do need more back and forth between design and construction than a lot
Right.
of ground up projects. So all in all, you kind of, it's good that you didn't have any nightmares, but you did run into all the things that tend to come up on a conversion project. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's good to hear the journey. So is there anything that we haven't talked about where you're like, man, this was something I would do differently if I came to the project again?
Um, no, I
Yeah.
felt like all the bumps that I hit along the way, I needed to so I can learn it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? If it would have been very ultimate streamline and no
Yeah.
bumps at all, then I wouldn't have learned as much as I did,
Yeah.
especially in the front end when I was trying to figure it out on my own. And then once Realm came in and I got in contact with my contractor, things got a lot better.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, so this is a good question that I don't get to ask often because most people are one-offs. You've got another conversion that you've already got in your head. You've got other properties. Are you thinking about another ADU?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It I'm really going more towards the corporate
Hmm.
housing route and
Hmm.
transitioning our properties into that
Yeah.
business model
Yeah.
because in Los Angeles, the landlord tenant laws are very strict and it's
Yeah.
really hard to do business as a mom and pop landlord in LA.
Yeah.
So the other property, I may hold off on converting that ADU just
Yeah.
because the return won't be as high as I'd like.
Yeah.
So I think we're on hold for a minute,
Yeah.
but you know,
Yeah.
things
Hey,
can change.
absolutely. No pressure. Just curious. If you were to do another project, whether it's an ADU or some other development project, do you think that this is an honest question, you can say no. Do you think you would use Realm again, or do you think you've learned enough in this first track and like you happen to meet Gil and like, do you think you could go off on your own and try it on your own this time?
um, I think, I would love to use Gil again,
Yeah.
but they're focused on ADUs
Yeah.
and that's what they do. So I may just
Yeah.
to get a right funnel of
Yeah.
contractors to come my way. But I have learned a lot along the way, and I've met a lot more people in the industry and in this world to where I feel confident that I can have a good resource. But for anybody who's just starting off and has no idea where to go, I do feel that they bring you quality contractors to give you bids. A lot of the times you see people that get bids, you pay half up front and then they take off with your money. And now you have a project that is just framed.
Yeah.
So there is some recourse when you're working with a company like this because that their reputation is ultimately on the line. And when you're working with someone that you found or that you just got referred by that you may not have been able to vet thoroughly,
Hmm.
you still are holding that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point too, and I would encourage people. It's not Christina's not giving legal advice, but it's great to know that there's an intermediary that's introduced you, that's vetted the builder, and like talk to them about what leverage they have in even negotiating between multiple bids or helping you get terms right in the scope of work, and eventually, knowing that if a builder leaves you high and dry after they introduced you, they're gonna work hard to make it right because they did the introduction. All
Right.
good stuff. But ultimately, I love your answer because what you're saying is like you feel like you've learned a lot, and so yeah, you have more than what you need to. You would work with Gil again if it were an ADU, that kind of thing. But at the same time, the service is it's a few $100 and you get 3 new bids. Like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Why wouldn't you go through it again and like get you got the best of both worlds? All right. This has been super helpful. Is there a corporate tenant? Have you lined something up for that ADU?
I have.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've joined a mentorship program that is teaching me how to navigate this corporate rental world.
Yeah,
And I'm learning a lot, and I'm in community with a lot of people who share leads and teaching me the ropes. So I
yeah,
have a corporate tenant there now who's here for 6 months.
yeah.
He's working at a nearby, he's a superintendent for a construction company. He's working a mile away, and I have a lease with the construction company, and they're paying me directly for the next 6 months.
For years I heard people talk about traveling nurses and stuff, and it's obviously great to provide housing for healthcare workers. They are good clients, but at the same time, I'm like, everybody's looking for this legendary traveling nurse. Corporate clients that are less than 12-month leases are an incredible market. I've met so many people who carved some space out doing 3 6 month leases that are you still don't have. I mean, they find ways to reduce vacancy. They love their corporate client. It's
Yes.
not the same tenant housing provider relationship as other situations. And yeah, it's really cool to hear that you're having success with that route. And congratulations on building some more housing and providing something much needed for people who are working in the LA area.
Yes, like our guest now. He's excellent, and our cleaners go in there. They say everything's just intact, and I couldn't ask for anything more. It's a little bit more money when you're
Sure.
talking about furnishing the unit,
Mhm.
but it really does pay you in the back end.
Yeah.
And I would like to convert our others into corporate housing also. So that's the goal
Yeah.
of the year.
Very cool. Well, I love it. Christina, you're going to be busy.
Yes.
Keeping busy. All right. I'll let you get back to it then. Thank you very much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom. If people want to learn more about Realm, check out the link in the description below or watch this playlist with other homeowners like Christina who have used Realm to save money, get their projects done on budget and on time. Thanks. Let's build some housing.